If you're a person whose friendship always seems to fall apart, if your friends suddenly distance themselves from you and you have no idea why they did that, the secret isn't just about who you surround yourself with. It's about how well you understand yourself first. Because the way you and I show up in friendship shapes the connections we build. So, if you don't mind, let me ask you this question. Do you know the role that you play in your friendship? Because if your friendship keeps ending the same way, it is not a coincidence, it's a pattern. And pattern starts with self awareness. Interestingly, all transformation begins with awareness. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to achieve this one skill. I would also share with you some practical principles that I believe will help you achieve this skill step by step. The one skill that you will need to work on that will transform your friendship or relationship is self awareness. And what do we understand and what does it mean to be self aware? Self awareness means understanding your own thoughts, emotions, behaviors, and how they affect your friends. It's about recognizing your strengths and weaknesses, being honest with yourself, and considering how your actions impact those around you. You see, when we understand all these things, we're able to better communicate with our friends, which will build trust and maintain strong and healthy friendships. So, while many individuals do believe that they are self aware, the research indicates that only 10 to 15% of our individuals truly possess this attribute. And I see self awareness as knowing ourselves first. That's how I see it. In my opinion, it is the secret ingredient that you and I need to better off ourselves first. And just imagine with me, imagine that you understand exactly what makes you happy, what makes you upset, what makes you joyful. Imagine having the ability to understand all of that. Wouldn't that be amazing? And so, without being self aware, you and I have the tendency of behaving in the following common ways. And remember, we are doing this thing unintentionally. The first one, we share the tendency of interrupting conversation. You know, when we lack self-awareness, we regularly speak over our friends whilst they're speaking, and that make them feel unheard, and sometimes they may even feel undervalued. The second common things that we do unintentionally is making insensitive comments or remarks. Making sensitive comments that disregard our friends' feelings or experiences. This can cause some of our friends emotional pain. The other thing that we tend to do is we neglect personal faults. If you always fail to recognize your own mistakes, that can lead to unresolved conflict. I call that a ticking time bomb waiting to explode on the friendship. And lastly, but not exhaustively, we tend to display emotional disconnect. What do I mean by emotional disconnect? Emotional disconnect, it just means that you and I lack the understanding of our own emotions. So no wonder why we exhibit lack of empathy to our friends because we do not even know our emotions ourselves. So if you don't know certain things about yourself, how can you relate with others? Now, it is important to note that the point that I've just mentioned is never meant to send anyone down the rabbit hole, because these self awareness skills, they're things that you and I can learn. And so it is achievable. And so now let's just go back quickly and look at how those points that I've raised before, now that we're developing a self awareness, let's see how we can implement that or how that can be applied. Remember, now we are able to recognize interruptive tendencies. Now, through self awareness, you and I can reflect on our communication habits. We can also identify if we frequently interrupt others. And why is that important? Because by we becoming aware of these tendencies, it allows us to consciously pause and listen whilst our friends are speaking. And as we do that, our friends feels heard and they feel valued. Secondly, we now begin to identify insensitive remarks that we used to make. How do we do that? We do that through self reflection. We can now assess our past conversations and recognize if we've made comments that may have hurt our friends in the past. With this awareness now, it enables us to choose our words more carefully in the future. And this would only encourage a more considerate and respectable dialogue or conversation amongst friends. We are also able now to acknowledge personal fault. Whilst before we never used to own up to our personal fault, now by developing self awareness, we are able to examine our actions and their implications. This will help us to identify the areas where we have contributed to any dispute or disagreement that we've made. The beauty about this and the benefit with this is that we are now able to recognize the role that we play in that dispute and take responsibility for that. As we take responsibility, we also make amends. Remember, I said take responsibility. Taking responsibility simply means we acknowledge our actions to our friends, we sincerely, genuinely apologize and be remorseful. We never make any excuses, nor do we shift blame. And if we do that, we will see that we will have the chance of having a healthier and a trustworthy friendship or relationship. And lastly, we're now able to enhance emotional connections. Remember when I said before that we lack empathy? Well, now as we're developing self awareness, we are able to understand our own emotions. And as we understand our own emotions, it helps us to be empathetic towards our friends so that we will know how to behave to them and their feelings. And I am very aware that, self awareness cannot be achieved in a flash, nor is it a race that anyone can just sprint through. I do know, however, that self awareness has the tendency and the power to elevate us to a level of personal growth that you've never seen before. Because you see, self awareness, it forces us to point the finger at us, to look in the mirror and do the changes that is necessary rather than pointing at our friends and forcing them to make the change. Being self aware is like a superpower that unlocks stronger relationship and clarity in life. For me personally, I think it's a game changer in my personal and relational growth. But we can talk about all these things if our mindset is not geared towards changing. Self awareness will not work within us. So, for self awareness to work, you and I must have a change of mindset. And as He allows us to work within us, then it can work through us. I did mention earlier on about the definition of self awareness, where it talks about the thoughts, the emotions, the behaviors, and the actions. Well, as we're looking at thoughts, you know that emotions and feelings, they, they tend to use them interchangeably, but they are two different but connected phenomena. In other words, emotions and feelings are connected, but they're not the same. And I don't know why I'm drifting, but let me just make this clarity. Emotions and feelings, in my opinion, works like this. Emotion is the spark. It is what you and I feel first when something happens, like a quick response. Feelings comes from our thoughts. After the spark, our brain think about what's happening and create a bigger feeling. Our feelings are like the fire that grows bigger depending on what we think about that spark. So if we have that in mind, let me try and just give an example. Hopefully that would resonate based on the analogy that I've just made. If you imagine that you're walking into a dark room, the spark or the emotion might be fear because it's dark. Your thoughts make the feeling bigger. So if you think, what if there's a monster in there? You will feel scared. On the other hand, if you think it's just any other room, it's my room. I know it's dark, but I also know it's safe. If you think like that, you will feel calm or okay. That's the reason why I know that emotions happens automatically, but the way we feel depends on what we think about the emotion. And that is why the same thing can make different people feel different ways because they think about it differently. So let's unpack all of this now. So imagine that when we lack self awareness, the emotions, the thoughts, the behaviors that we exhibit is to our friends or people around us is like a leaking diaper. If any of you know the analogy about babies, you would know that when a baby has a soiled diaper, they walk around with the soiled diaper, and everywhere they go, that diaper smells. And the people that surround the baby have the effect of the leaking diaper. Whilst the baby walks around, the baby is completely unaware of what's happening. Could that be the same with us when we have these thoughts, emotions, and behaviors that portray to our friends? Could that be that as we lack this self awareness, we portray these things, we're walking unaware of what's happening towards our friends and around our friends? Now, these thoughts and emotions are nothing to be ashamed of. For the most of us, these are thoughts and emotions that have been cascaded from generations, either from what we've seen or what we've heard or the people that you and I have been around. For some of us, these thoughts, emotions, and behaviors could even stem from how we internalize our upbringing. But what's interesting as I'm speaking to you now, you and I have never stopped and took the time to reflect and question how our thoughts, emotions, behaviors have been interpreted by others or our friends, or how are they presented to our friends or others. Isn't that funny? It is interesting. Now, I mentioned about a mindset. You and I have to change our mindset. That mindset that opposed to change. Because I know for some people they will say, well, I don't need to change, I'm okay. I would say this to you. We have to change our mindset, the mindset that opposed to change. And I know that self awareness could be that change that could change how others perceive us, and better still, how we perceive our own thoughts, emotions, and actions. Once you and I have developed a persistent pattern of being self-aware, relationships, friendships that used to drain us would all of a sudden become seamless. And because of that, because we all have the potential of having a thriving relationship or friendship. Hey, I want you to know this. In all what we're saying, I believe in you. I believe in you that you can champion this skill. I believe in you so much because I know if I can do it, you are not an exception. As you watch this video, my sincere hope for you, or maybe not you, maybe you might say you're fine, but my sincere hope for your friend or your friend's friend is that as you watch this video, you will become better. Better in yourself and your personal growth first, and better in self-discovering certain things that will resonate with you. And with that being said, would you mind to like, share, and subscribe to my channel? That will mean so much from you. Until you watch my next video, keep growing, keep learning, keep winning, and stay blessed. Bye for now.